What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Facemask Fantasy and another Thursday night football game. Week 3 is upon us this evening between the Jets and the Patriots. And so we will get into the fantasy breakdown for this evening's games. We'll run through the most up-to-date information that we have as far as injury reports. And then, of course, I can get into questions. Hope everybody's having a good start to the week so far. Hopefully tonight, if you have any type of piece going this evening, kicks your fantasy matchup off the way you're hoping that it goes. Not the most enticing matchup this evening between two somewhat lackluster offenses. Interesting pieces on both sides of the ball. Good pieces on both sides of the ball, but as far as the matchup as a whole, it's not exactly the most enticing. But football is football. We count our blessings, and football games are one of those. So we keep it moving. We start the guys tonight that make sense, and we hope for the best. For tonight, I meant to share this with my friends over in Discord. If you're not a part of the Discord channel, you can be. That is the second link in the description of the live stream. I got to let folks over there know that I just kicked this thing off. But for this evening, the obvious starts, the guys that you're already that are already in your lineup and not coming out of your lineup are the running backs, the starting running backs on both sides in this matchup. Breece Hall leads all running backs in target share. So maybe he continues to catch a few more dump offs tonight. Ramondre Stevenson, his usage has been excellent this year so far through the early slate. Can't imagine that changes much. You're starting him regardless. And, of course, Garrett Wilson. It is a difficult matchup this evening against Christian Gonzalez. So we unfortunately may have to lower expectations a little bit for Garrett Wilson. However, the targets are going to continue to come in. Aaron Rodgers will continue to force the ball to Garrett Wilson. And he's too talented to come out of your lineup as it is. I have too many programs open. It's probably slowing me down a little bit. So let's fix this up. Let's see. All right. Breece, Ramondre, Garrett Wilson. You're starting all of those guys tonight. Honestly, after that, there's not a ton of appeal here. Hunter Henry is on the streaming radar. Had a massive game last week. Who did New England play? I don't even remember who they played last week. That's right. They played Seattle at home. Huge game for Hunter Henry against the Seahawks. Now he goes on the road and faces the Jets, who we don't really have much to go off of yet as far as how effectively or efficiently they play against opposing tight ends. George Kittle did well against them week 1. Their week 2 opponent was the Tennessee Titans, who don't really have anybody of note at tight end. It's Chigakonkwo and I don't even remember who the backup tight end is for Tennessee. Wiley, I believe. I think they combined for 4 or 5 catches for not a lot of yards. So there's not a ton to go off of as far as this matchup. CJ Mosley, one of the better, probably the Jets' best linebacker, is questionable tonight with a toe injury. His availability has been reported all week as 50-50 for this game. He's having a difficult time pushing off. He's got the toe injury, so that's bothering him. So I'm sure they'll go through a pregame warm-up, see how he does, and make a call from there. If he goes, he's less than 100%. And if he doesn't go, then obviously it's an overall downgrade for the Jets linebacking core. So that theoretically helps Hunter Henry tonight. He is on the streaming radar as a low-end tight end one. As always, with low-end tight end one, that doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. There's not a big difference between low-end tight end one and like the top 20 options at tight end. The line is very small. So with Hunter Henry coming off the strong game, you can fire him up. I just, if it's not an automatic slam dunk guy on Thursday night, I am not a big fan of firing up ancillary options on Thursday night football. You can go with Hunter Henry tonight. There's a lot of folks like, as far as where you probably get your information for rankings. I think my audio is working. Where you get your information for rankings and all of that stuff. Hunter Henry is in the top 12 or in the top 10 for a lot of rankings. I guess that's where I would have him. I'm not super enthusiastic. The matchup is good enough, and obviously Henry balled out week 2. The matchup is good enough for him to stream, especially if you've got Evan Engram, who is not playing this week. It's understandable to fire up a guy like Hunter Henry, but let's say you've got Jake Ferguson, who missed last week with the injury, but he's reportedly on track to play this week, but nothing is definitive. Again, we still need to see Friday practice reports to ultimately make a call on the guys who are playing on Sunday or Monday night. There's 2 of those games, by the way, this week, a Monday night doubleheader, the first of, I think, 4 Monday night doubleheaders this year. We don't have all the information yet. We still need to see Friday practice reports before we make a definitive call on anybody going on Sunday. But if you have Evan Engram, he's not going to play this week, or it's looking highly unlikely that he plays this week. So you could fire up a Hunter Henry. But if you have like a Jake Ferguson, I'm holding out for Ferguson over Hunter Henry. And if Ferguson gets ruled out, I'll just pick up somebody like Zach Ertz, who's playing on Monday night. He had 4 catches the other day for, I think, over 60 yards. So my answer about Hunter Henry, who the bigger resources, your ESPNs, your fantasy pros, and I don't have, I haven't checked all of these guys, but wherever you have your subscriptions, whether it's Fantasy Points or wherever else you get your information, PFF, they all have Henry ranked relatively high as far as tight end rankings go for this week. I'm not as bullish just because I hate Thursday night football, and it's dicey with guys on the road in particular. He might be fine, especially with the tight end landscape once again proving to be incredibly volatile. I'm fine with Henry if you have like an Evan Engram, but if you have like a Jake Ferguson, then I'm holding out for Ferguson instead of Hunter Henry. And if ultimately Ferguson can't go, I'll pick up somebody like Zach Ertz. Everybody else in this matchup is probably a sit. Unless you play Superflex leagues. In that case, Aaron Rodgers can be fired up. Hopefully, if you play a Superflex league, and you have Jacoby Brissett, he's your QB3 and you can bench him tonight. I suppose that might not be the case if you really punted at quarterback in a Superflex league, but I'm not really crazy about either of the quarterbacks in this game. Rodgers probably has to be played in Superflex, but that's about it. Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, the Patriots wide receivers in general, all incredibly low on the wide receiver rankings for this week. Ideally, you're not relying on any of those guys. The same can be said for the second and third options at wideout for the Jets. Allen Lazard, Mike Williams. it's anybody's guess if either one of those guys do anything of note tonight. It's also a tough matchup. It's a tough matchup for both wide receiver groups. The Jets have good corners, and the Patriots have an emerging shutdown guy in Christian Gonzalez, who will probably see Garrett Wilson. I guess that possibly opens things up for Williams and Lazard, but they are so far down the pecking order that I don't really want to consider them. Probably the same with somebody like Antonio Gibson, who had a good game week 2. And the Jets' run defense has been suspect through 2 games, but again, short week on the road. I'm benching these ancillary options who could maybe have some flex appeal in deeper leagues if the game was playing on Sunday. It's on Thursday, and they're the road team. That's enough for me to say I don't really have a whole lot of confidence in any of those guys. And the same can be said on Ford. I liked Tyler Conklin coming into the year as a guy to potentially soak up more targets from Aaron Rodgers with their wide receiver core in flux. It has not translated. It has not materialized. Even though Aaron Rodgers isn't really pushing the football down the field, he's taking all of the short and intermediate throws. You would think that would be good for the tight end, but it has not materialized for Ty Conklin. So he is not on the streaming radar. It's the exact opposite. He's firmly off the tight end streaming radar until we see him do anything of note. I think he had 1 catch week 1. I know he didn't do much of anything last week. 1 catch for 10 yards last week. So he's got 2 catches on the season. No, thank you. We're looking at alternative options. So, Breece, Ramondre, Garrett Wilson, obvious starts. Hunter Henry is a tentative low-end tight end 1 who I am not as bullish on as maybe some other sources are, just because it's a short week on a Thursday and and they are the road team. I'm just not. I don't like playing that spot personally, unless it's, it has to be a really good smash spot where it's like, the linebacking core is decimated and the guy has had a couple of really good weeks like recently. I know Henry has had a good week last week, but the Patriots offense isn't the most spectacular on the road short week. I can't give a ton of confidence to Hunter Henry for this week. Rest of season, he's probably going to be viable. But that's about it. Not tonight. I'm not feeling it tonight. Also, if you do ultimately play in a larger league, always move your players that play on Thursday night out of the flex, move them into one of the positional spots, maximize your flex for Sunday and Monday night. Do not waste it on a Thursday night matchup that potentially handcuffs you for the Sunday and Monday slate. Make sure that you keep that flex open and do not start your Thursday night football players in the flex. What's going on, Greg? Good to see you, sir. And yep, I would play Ferguson. I would bench Hunter Henry. I see questions coming into the chat. What's up, everybody? Hopefully everyone's doing well. Appreciate y'all's patience. Members do get questions and comments prioritized as a perk of being a member of the channel. And then I get to everybody else. And you'll get called out as a member of the channel. So you'll know that I'm addressing you directly. Let's get into the latest injury news, and then I can get into questions. Again, with Sunday start-sit questions that pertain strictly to the weekend, I'm going to strongly encourage you to come back on Saturday or Sunday when we have all information. We have Friday practice reports, and it's a little bit easier to make a more definitive call on some of your options when we are a little bit closer to the game and we know the definitive injury status of each player. It doesn't apply to everybody, but it's just good practice to wait until Saturday or, of course, even Sunday morning to make that call. Injury updates for week 3. CeeDee Lamb popped up on the injury report yesterday with an ankle injury. He confirmed today that he is good to go. The coaching staff confirmed that that was a minor concern, so we're not worried about CeeDee. You are firing him up with plenty of confidence going into this week 3 matchup against Baltimore. Justin Herbert missed practice yesterday, but he was participating in practice today, so that's a good news for the Chargers offense in general. Nico Collins missed practice on Wednesday. This looks like it's trending toward being a common trend for Nico Collins. He has now not practiced on Wednesdays back-to-back weeks, only to return to practice on Thursdays. So in all likelihood, the Texans are just monitoring and maintaining his reps over the course of the season. So Nico Collins is looking like one of those guys that might not practice much on Wednesdays this year, but you just don't worry about it. What's going on, Jake? Good to see you. T. Higgins, this is actually this is noteworthy. T. Higgins returned to practice today for the Bengals, who are playing on Monday night against Washington. So today is actually more like the Wednesday practice report for anybody playing on Monday night, which I believe is Buffalo, Jacksonville, and Cincinnati and Washington. So this is sort of like a Wednesday practice day for those players. T. Higgins returning to practice today is huge. If he logs another limited practice tomorrow, you're probably looking at a situation where you can fire up T. Higgins if you have him. Again, if you're between T. Higgins and other players who are playing on Sunday, I strongly encourage you to come back to the Saturday, Sunday start-sit streams to get a definitive after we get definitive confirmation on availability for players playing this weekend, and we can make a call a little bit easier at that time. Joe Mixon has missed practice for a second straight day. It's kind of well documented at this point. He was forced out of the game after what he and the team felt like was a hip drop tackle that didn't get called by the referees. Forced him out of the game. He was able to return briefly, but then he ceded the rest of the way to Cam Akers when the Texans were salting that game away. Mixon now not practicing for a second straight day. His availability is officially in question at best for this week as of right now. We will see what his practice status is on Friday. That will be a big one to monitor. Speaking of quarterbacks, I already talked about Justin Herbert, who missed practice Wednesday but returned to practice Thursday. This is a great sign. This is great news. Jordan Love for the Packers was seen participating in practice today. It looks like his absence will be a lot shorter than originally feared after he suffered the injury week 1 in Brazil. Great news for Jordan Love. Great news for the Packers wide receivers. Great news for the Packers offense in general, to be honest. So good to see. Good to see that Love returned to practice so quickly, given the initial fears of the injury that he suffered in week 1. It's looking possible that he can go this Sunday against Tennessee. Josh Downs fully practiced for the second straight day, so his return appears imminent. He's got a chance to make some noise, maybe not this week, but eventually. Michael Pittman's been kind of quiet so far. A.D. Mitchell, the hype on him kind of slowed down a little bit last week. And then it's really been the Alec Pierce show. That's been the big name so far as the Colts wide receivers. It's been Alec Pierce. So we'll see how that shakes out with Downs back in the mix, but it looks like he's ready to return this week after logging full practices yesterday and today. What's up, Crumply Heads? You already know. I think you had a question in Discord. I apologize. I was only just seeing it. I'll look at that now because I think you asked that yesterday. You have to move T. Higgins out of IR, which you do want to do. The fact that Evan Ingram is still not, you can cut Josh Palmer. You can cut Josh Palmer. That's who I would drop. Quentin Johnston has seemingly emerged. Lad McConkey is doing his thing. They're running the ball a lot as expected, and they got a tough slate of matchups coming up starting this week with Pittsburgh. Palmer can be dropped to activate Higgins, get Shaheed in your starting lineup, and put Carr in as your quarterback. I don't think you have anybody going tonight, so you don't have to do that now. If you want to wait until Evan Ingram ultimately gets ruled out, which I guess might not happen until Monday. But if it comes to Sunday and you need to absolutely make a decision or make a lineup call, you can drop Josh Palmer. You can drop Josh Palmer. And that reminds me, let me actually let me share my link to this in the Discord. If you're not a member of the Discord, you can join for free. Second link in the description of this live stream and all of the streams and videos on this channel. All right. Now we're good. What's going on, Nemo? Good to see you, sir. Let's see. Where did I leave off with practice or with practice reports? No, and Crumply Heads, I'm gonna type in my response to your Discord question now so that you have it in writing. There we go. Okay, let's see. Downs fully practices again, so we'll see how that shakes out moving forward. Keenan Allen didn't practice for a second straight day after missing all of practice last week and the game, so I wouldn't be relying on Keenan Allen this week, especially not with how bad the Bears offense looks right now. I wouldn't really want to be relying on anybody in that offense, I guess except for DJ Moore. But it's been like pulling teeth so far. DJ Moore is another one of these wide receivers that like is still in quarterback hell. We'll see if Caleb Williams can turn things around, but it's been brutal through 2 weeks. This one is a development to monitor. 49ers tight end George Kittle did not practice today. He popped up on the injury report after being fine yesterday. So, the friggin' injuries continue to strike. The injury bug is running rampant around the NFL. Hopefully you haven't been too snake bitten, but you're probably not alone if you have been. So Kittle not practicing today. That's a 49ers offense that's already going to be without Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. So Jordan Mason all the way up, wheels up, and then we're going to see how much work Brandon Ayuk can handle, because he might be the last man standing for that 49ers offense. And in deeper leagues, Jawan Jennings is looking like a rock solid roll of the dice as a wide receiver 3 or flex. So Kittle not practicing today. His injury status will be huge to monitor for Friday. So let's keep an eye on that. Evan Ingram didn't practice for a second straight day. They reported that today that he's further off than what was initially thought. So by all accounts, he's going to get ruled out ahead of Monday night. They haven't done it yet. It would be nice if they did so that we could put him on IR if you have him. But they haven't done it yet. It's not looking good for Evan Ingram's availability on Monday. Justin Jefferson was limited for a second straight day, which is good news for his availability this week. But we'll obviously want to keep an eye on that one. Jordan Addison didn't practice for a second straight day. Not looking great for his availability this week. And Jefferson has confirmed as of about an hour ago that he will play week 3. That's not a huge surprise. He said earlier in the week after suffering the injury on Sunday that he would be good to go and that he wasn't super worried. His confirmation that he will play confirms that, for lack of a better term. Again, Jake Ferguson limited in practice today, so it's looking like Ferguson will return. He is a guy that you are holding out for. So if you have Hunter Henry like Greg does, and you were thinking about, do I play Hunter Henry or do I wait for Jake Ferguson? My answer is to wait for Jake Ferguson. If Ferguson cannot go, I would pick somebody up like a Zach Ertz on Monday night. He's still available in a lot of leagues. Oh, we're holding out for we're holding out for Ferguson. Fergie Ferg making his comeback, and AJ Brown, to the surprise of nobody, based on what information we've received since Monday night. AJ Brown doesn't practice again Thursday. He is not gonna. I think it's fair to say he is not gonna play Week 3 against New Orleans. He pretty much declared himself likely out for the next couple of weeks. The Eagles have a Week 5 bye, one of the earlier bye weeks this year. I would be surprised if we saw AJ Brown before Week 6. So if you have AJ Brown, I don't think he's been ruled out yet officially, which again is frustrating and annoying for your lineup and being able to put him on IR. But don't expect to have AJ Brown this week. Don't expect to have AJ Brown next week either. And then, of course, again, the Week 5 bye, I would expect that we see AJ Brown Week 6. I think that is all of the injury updates ahead of Thursday night. Again, one more time, if you have start-sit questions that only pertain to the Sunday or Monday games, I strongly encourage you to hold them until the Saturday, Sunday live streams for start-sit help. Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern, Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern. We can go over final decisions for your lineup then. If you are between options between tonight and the Sunday slate, I'm happy to take them. But if you have start-sit questions and they only pertain to Sunday, it's in all likelihood we want to wait until we get those Friday practice reports before we make any definitive calls. You never know what's going to happen. George Kittle, for example, today popped up on the injury report after not being on the injury report yesterday. So let's get through Friday and let's get through to the weekend before we make any definitive calls on any start-sit questions that only pertain to the Sunday and Monday games. So, Greg, you are between, again, for anybody just joining, first of all, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to come hang out. I will be getting to my members first. That is a perk of being a member of the channel. You will get your questions and or comments responded to in priority order, and you will have your username called out so you know I am referring to you specifically. And then I will get to everybody else. So I just ask for a little bit of patience as I work through the members first. Appreciate that in advance. Greg, as far as you picked up Carr, probably the best stream this week. You could also go back to Jordan Love, who is returning to game action, presumably after only a 1-week absence, which is pretty remarkable. I'm tempted to say just stream Derek Carr, who is playing incredibly well right now. Gets a very beatable matchup against the Eagles, whose defense does not look good right now. Not looking good at all at any level. Their defensive line is not good. The linebackers are average. The secondary is, there's a lot of young guys there, and I think they're getting affected by the poor play along the line. So they're just not playing well as a whole. It's a good matchup for Love, but in his first game back, I might want to wait a week while Derek Carr is absolutely on fire. So I would probably go Carr. For 1 week, I would go Carr, and then you could probably drop him after this week and go back to Jordan Love. I should mention, or I will mention, in addition to getting to the members first, if you are feeling so inclined, you don't have to, but if you send a super, that would also qualify as a priority answer to your question, but you don't have to. I would just ask again for a little bit of patience as I work through the member questions. It doesn't look like there are too many at the moment, so you shouldn't have to wait too much longer, but just sharing all the same. I would play Carr, I think, over Love for just this week, but regardless of how the performances go, I would probably go back to Love next week, but I would play Carr this week, who is healthy and on fire. What's up, E111? Good to see you. Did I say too many ones? I probably did. Stevenson or Olave in standard scoring. So you have Stevenson tonight versus Olave in a very beatable matchup against the Eagles. But obviously, there's no PPR. I hate Thursday night football, but Ramondre Stevenson's usage is through the roof right now. I think you have to go with Ramondre. If you can only play one, I think you have to play Ramondre. Usage has been awesome. He's running a ton of routes, so pass catching. The receptions haven't materialized yet, but that should course correct eventually. And the Jets don't look great right now against the run. The Jets do not look great right now against the run. I would go with Stevenson. I would go with Stevenson over a lot. It's wild to have to, like, if you have to bench Chris Olave, but I'm playing, especially in standard scoring, I'm playing Ramondre Stevenson over him. I would probably start Ramondre Stevenson over Chris Olave in half PPR scoring. That's how great Stevenson has been so far. And again, he is getting insane usage. What is this? According to Chiefs running backs coach Todd Pinkston, Kareem Hunt still has it. Whatever it is. This is a sleeper update that I just received. If you have sleeper, hopefully you play your fantasy leagues on sleeper. If you don't, I highly encourage you to join sleeper. Move your league over to sleeper next year. They have the most intuitive app. They have the most fantasy friendly app. They have league chats that are available right on the app, so you can easily coordinate and talk to your league mates. Instead of mass texting people, you can just do it right on the app. They color code the positions nicely. I like Sleeper a lot. And they send you notifications. Like, they send you updates. They send you quotes from coaches. They send you quotes from the players. It's a good app. Kareem Hunt apparently still has it. We've just got to get him up to speed. Whatever. I mean, take it however you would like to take that information. I would still bet on Carson Steele being the main guy for at least this week against Atlanta. What that actually translates to, we're gonna find out, I guess. But it is a musical chairs situation in the backfield for Kansas City without Isaiah Pacheco, who, by the way, is looking now like his availability for the rest of the season is in question. He underwent surgery yesterday or Monday, Tuesday, within the past couple of days to, obviously to address the fractured fibula. Head coach Andy Reid yesterday said he's, speculating it could be that he returns this year, but it could be that he's not available to return until next year. So that initial 6 to 8 week timeline that we were given for Isaiah Pacheco is now, I'm not 100% sure how believable it is. Hopefully it is. Hopefully Pacheco only misses 6 to 8 weeks and he's able to return by November, but not sure how much we can believe that. I think that does it for the most recent updates and injury reports. Let's see. Greg has a couple more questions, so I will get to Greg because I got to get to my members first. They help keep the lights on around here, and then I will get to everybody else. Mixon's probably not. It's not looking great for Joe Mixon. Back-to-back missed practices again. We got to see what happens on Friday. We got to see what happens with the practice reports tomorrow. If he misses tomorrow, I would assume he just isn't going to play. But we have to see. If he practices tomorrow and then that theoretically puts him on track to play, then you have to play Joe Mixon, even though he's possibly in that situation going into this game at less than 100%. Depending on the scoring, well, if you have Pittman, I think you have to go back to the well with Pittman for one more week. I can't play Cam Akers or Jawan Jennings or Adam Thielen over Michael Pittman. But if that's not the question, if the question is just between these three guys, if it's half or full PPR, I would probably, even in standard scoring, to be honest, I would probably take a shot on Jawan Jennings. Christian McCaffrey, obviously out for the foreseeable future. Deebo Samuel looking likely to miss a couple of weeks. And now George Kittle is on the injury report after picking up a hamstring injury today. I would say Jawan Jennings, if you're looking for deep dart throws or just, potential random upside guys, I would say Jawan Jennings is the play this week, especially in half or full PPR scoring. He's a little less enticing in standard scoring, but even there, I mean, the 49ers are running out of live bodies at this point, especially if Kittle can't go, which would be a surprise or let's call it a disappointing development after, he's been fully healthy and perfectly fine through the first couple weeks of the season, practiced yesterday, and then, of course, pops up today. Hopefully it's precautionary, but again, we got to see Friday practice reports before we make any definitive calls on these guys. Pittman plays all over all of those dudes, as does Joe Mixon if he's ready to go. But if Mixon is out and Pittman is already in your starting lineup, which he should be given these other options, then I would go Jennings. I would go Jawan Jennings. All right, let's move it back up to the top. Appreciate everybody's patience as I get to my members. I can get to everybody else now. So this is a start-sit question that I think only it only pertains to the Sunday and Monday games. Cooper, Waddle, Shaheed, Lockett, Ridley, Eckler. I'm probably waiting until Friday practice reports to make any definitive calls. I will say I think Jalen Waddle is a sit this week, which sucks. But with Skylar Thompson in there instead of Tua, Waddle in his brief history catching passes from Skylar Thompson, it's only been like 3 or 4 games. It hasn't been good. Seattle at home is a tough place to play. Seattle's generally playing well. I think their defense is revamped after hiring Mike McDonald away from the Ravens this year. Waddle's a sit for me. So I don't know, maybe Cooper, Shaheed, Ridley. If it's half PPR, that's probably where I would go. But again, we got to see what happens. We got to see what happens on Friday practice reports. I would probably like Cooper, Shaheed, Ridley, I think is where I would go. The Browns got the Giants this week, so this could be a good bounce back spot for Amari Cooper if you have him. I know he's been really disappointing through the first couple of weeks, but this could be a bounce back spot for Amari Cooper. You have decent enough pieces. I wouldn't, again, 0-2 sucks. It sucks to start 0-2, but I'm not, unless your team is decimated by injuries, which I guess it could be. This particular team isn't decimated by injuries, but I don't want to hit the panic button too soon. Sell too low on some guys that are underperforming. If you want to trade Jalen Waddle, I understand. I'm personally probably holding and hoping that he can get his value up a little bit, because right now it's down. It's way down because of Skylar Thompson. So you're only going to get pennies on the dollar for Jalen Waddle. On one hand, if you want to cut your losses, I understand, but I'm not willing to cut my losses with a guy that I drafted in the 3rd round or maybe even 2nd round. Until we actually see the on-field product without Tua, which is probably not going to be great, but Tyreek and Waddle are a strong enough combination where they could elevate their own. They could elevate the offense still, even with a backup quarterback. I don't want to sell low with Jalen Waddle, knowing that I'm just not going to get. I'm not going to get the value that I would have expected under normal circumstances. And as unknown as it is, however you feel about it, regardless of how you feel about it, it appears like right now the window is open for Tua to return. We're all going to have our opinions on how we feel about whether that should happen or not. But after this IR stint, it's not at least today, out of the realm of possibility that Tua returns for better or worse. He doesn't want to retire. That's the latest report that we received. He's getting an opportunity to sit for a month, sit for 4 weeks on IR, consult with doctors, consult with neurologists, and all that stuff. I just don't want to sell low on Jalen Waddle. I just don't want to sell low. So I would not panic at 0-2. I would hold. Let's reassess after next week. Do you drop Justin Tucker to add Harrison Butker? Who the hell dropped Harrison Butker, and why? And why? Why would you drop Harrison Butker? Not you, your league mate. Like, why would they do that? I don't think I would. It's like I drafted Justin Tucker to be my kicker. I might as well just keep riding the wave. I know that he has been horrendous from deep recently. He hasn't been hitting his 50-yard field goals, but he's still hitting the 40-yard field goals. He hit 2 of them this past week. He had he had 3 field goals this past week. There's a potential for plenty of points to be scored in this game against the Cowboys, whose defense does not look as strong as maybe it was supposed to be on paper coming into the season. No, I'm just looking it up now. Tucker has 5 field goals through 2 games. Butker has 4. Yeah, they're both good. I just that's frustrating. Like, why would anybody drop Harrison Butker? You drafted that guy probably to be your kicker. He hasn't been that bad. I don't understand why somebody would do that. But to that point, I would probably just keep Tucker. Yes, the 50-plus field goals are a concern. He's not hitting those right now, but he is hitting everything else. I think he had around 13 fantasy points last week. You're taking that from a kicker every single week. So, no, I would just stick with Tucker. The 50-plus kicks are a concern, but he's hitting the other ones. He's the most accurate kicker in NFL history. Could he be falling off? Could we be seeing the beginning of the end of Justin Tucker? I suppose that's possible. But I'm going to continue to ride the wave because he's been otherwise pretty good. He's still hitting the 40-yard field goals. And there's something to be said for that. This is another question, another start-sit question that only pertains to Sunday, Monday games. So we got to see how Friday practice reports play out. Tentatively in full PPR, I would go Pittman, Najee, Deontay Johnson. I do think Deontay has some flex appeal with Andy Dalton under center instead of Bryce Young. At least he's a veteran presence. So I think that helps the Carolina offense in the short term. So tentatively Deontay, along with Pittman and Najee. I probably wouldn't play Quentin Johnston, and I am not crazy about Demarcus Robinson against the 49ers. And then Carson Steele is like a wait and see. But again, let's see if the Friday practice reports reveal anything for any of these guys. I would encourage to, we can definitively confirm it on Sunday or on Saturday or Sunday. But Pittman, Najee, Deontay would probably be my answer. So thoughts on Hunter Henry rest of season. I did kind of cover this a little bit at the top because I'm not super bullish on Hunter Henry tonight. That being said, I think Hunter Henry is going to be a serviceable low-end tight end 1 option for the rest of the season. Jacoby Brissett is not pushing the ball downfield, which means short and intermediate throws. That goes to the running backs and the tight ends typically. So I think Hunter Henry has low-end tight end 1 appeal for the rest of the season. That being said, I'm not super crazy about him tonight. I'm just not. I don't like guys on Thursday Night Football, especially the ones who are playing on the road, if they're not a slam dunk for your starting lineup. The slam dunks are Ramondre Stevenson, Breece Hall, and Garrett Wilson. I guess Aaron Rodgers is a slam dunk in super flex leagues. Other than that, none of these dudes really they don't stand out to me. Hunter Henry sort of stands out as a decent stream, but you can play Hunter Henry tonight if you had Evan Ingram and are not, you're without him for the time being. Other than that, I don't really want to play Hunter Henry. If you already have him, fine. I just don't like the Thursday night road game. I'm just not a fan. And Crumply, you can't help yourself, Crumply Head. That's okay. McBride or Andrews? I guess I would go McBride. Kyler's balling out. Kyler looks great, and Andrews has been kind of pedestrian so far. I would go. I would go McBride. Again, pending Friday practice reports. I would go McBride. He got a little lucky last week with that fumble recovery for a touchdown, but the Cardinals' offense looks really good. Kyler Murray is, it's early, but he's looking like he's playing some of the best ball of his career. Kyler looks awesome. So yeah, Hunter Henry, rest of season, good. Rock solid. If you missed on the top tight end options, which is maybe a good thing at this point, Henry looks like a rock solid low end tight end one option rest of season, but I'm not crazy about him tonight. And yes, happy Thursday to everybody. Hello to everybody, of course. Again, thanks for coming in and hanging out, thinking enough to spend some time tonight. It's not the most exciting Thursday night football game, but football is football, right? We're going to take it regardless. It's a trade question. Someone offered McLaurin and Deontay Johnson for Waddle. I just got done saying I'm not crazy about trading Jalen Waddle right now because you're probably getting pennies on the dollar. That being said, that's not a bad offer. You have Evans, who is starting every week. Do you start 2 receivers or 3? That'll be my first question to get some clarity here. Does your league start 2 receivers or 3 receivers? Evans is in your lineup every week. Devontae Smith and Rashee Rice are in your lineup every week if you start 3 receivers. And honestly, depending on who your running backs are, those 3 guys might be in your lineup even if you only start 2 receivers. So to that point, if you start 3 receivers, McLaurin and Deontay offer you some solid depth options to turn to over the course of the season. Neither one of them has done anything so far. Deontay could be the one who's getting a little bit of a boost right now with Andy Dalton getting inserted in the starting lineup. At least he's a veteran. Again, McLaurin has done very little so far. Yet again, McLaurin, the expectations year in, year out are high for McLaurin because he's a really good individual player, but he continues to be hampered by the quarterback play. Jaden Daniels looks promising overall, but the volume just hasn't been there. The target share for McLaurin is there, but the results haven't translated. I like them both for depth. If you only start 2 receivers, I think I would ride the wave with Waddle because you have Evans, Rice, and Devontae Smith. But if you start 3 receivers, I think I'm okay with the trade because you're getting 2 solid depth options who have both underperformed to this point, but it's not hard to see their fortunes turning around with, Jaden Daniels continuing to get experience with McLaurin and at the NFL level in general, and with Deontay at this point probably getting a quarterback upgrade. Andy Dalton in 2024 is probably better than the version of Bryce Young that the Panthers have gotten thus far. I would say no to the trade if you only start 2 receivers, but I'm open to it if you start 3. Okay. Sit one in full PPR. I mean, Keenan Allen is the only guy who's he's injured here. Didn't play last week. Didn't practice or play last week. Hasn't practiced so far this week. Keenan Allen is my sit from this group. As long as all of these guys make it through the Friday practice reports, even if Keenan Allen returns to practice in a limited fashion tomorrow, I would not play him. I would not play him. He didn't play last week. He hasn't practiced for the first 2 days of the week this week. The Bears offense looks abysmal. Honestly, the only Bear that I'm playing right now is DJ Moore, and even that is volatile with how poorly Caleb Williams has played thus far. So I would sit Keenan Allen, and that's that feels like a rather easy call right now because he missed last week. He's not practicing yet, and the Bears offense right now is one of the worst in the league. Do you flex Demarcus Robinson, Brian Thomas, or Donta Foreman? Who do the Jags have? Buffalo on Monday night. That's a tough spot. Whereas Demarcus Robinson should operate, for better or worse, as the Rams wide receiver 1. I would probably go him. I do not trust Donta Foreman. I know he got more work last week, but he didn't look good doing it. I would probably go Demarcus Robinson. He should be the number 1 option, even though this Rams offense is putrid. And they're missing everybody. They're not just Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. I think they've lost 3 guys on the offensive line so far, and we're only at week 3. So it's either Demarcus Robinson on a barren wasteland of a Rams offense, or Brian Thomas, who looks good, but it's a bad matchup. The Bills look great on defense, and they look great as a whole. So that could be a tough spot for the rookie, who I do like a lot. I would probably lean Demarcus Robinson. I would probably go Demarcus Robinson, but it's tough. It's a tough call because that Rams offense is a shell of itself right now. So I don't have admittedly a ton of confidence in my own call to say Demarcus Robinson over Brian Thomas. Robinson is a floor play. Brian Thomas is a boom bust all or nothing, is what I would expect. And I'm not playing Foreman. Let's see. I see Jake has a question, so I have my spot in line. I don't think there are too many more questions above, but I got to get to the members first, but sit tight if I haven't answered your question yet. I promise I will get to it. Appreciate y'all's patience. But as always, I got to get to my members first. Dan, you drafted a shitload of tight ends. What was the thinking drafting so many tight ends? I mean, Bowers was the guy. Laporta and McBride are kind of Laporta's off to a real slow start. McBride is solid, but I mean, Bowers looks awesome right now. I mean, that's the dude that you have to play. That's a lot of space on your bench, though, for tight ends that you drafted high. You may almost want to consider selling high on Brock Bowers. Get a really good option at wide receiver or running back, because you can ask for a really good option right now, and then you can wait on Laporta to turn things around, or you can just keep it moving with Trey McBride. You may want to consider. I love Brock Bowers. He looks awesome. But if you have 3 tight ends that people are starting as tight end 1s for the rest of the season, you probably want to trade one of those. But you don't want to trade Laporta, whose value is in the toilet right now. I would consider trading. 3 different leagues. Got it. Okay. That's better. I was like, why are we hoarding so many tight ends in one league? Yeah, Bowers looks great. In that case, if he's your tight end, then he's just your tight end, and you're not doing anything about that other than playing him every week for the rest of the season, in all likelihood. Crumply Heads, I see you have a defense question. My answer to that, Kansas City, Baltimore, and I'm happy to talk defense streams tonight as well, just in general, just so that you could get a jump on it. My answer to Kansas City or Tampa Bay or the Baltimore Ravens, my answer to that is, are the Green Bay Packers available? Because they're playing Will Levis. Are the Packers available? Because they're playing Will Levis. Are the Colts available? Did the Colts get dropped after a bad performance last week? They're playing the Chicago Bears, and the Bears look terrible. The Bears look terrible on offense. Will Levis is like, I said it last weekend, like Will Levis feels like the new Jameis Winston, where he's just like YOLO ball. He plays with no fear, which is great, but it results in a lot of turnovers. My answer for defensive streams this week are the Colts, who didn't have a good showing last week, but I believe they're back. Are they at home? Are the Colts at home? They are. The Colts are at home. So some home cooking might make all the difference for them. I believe the Packers are the Packers at home. No, they're on the road against Tennessee. So maybe I don't like that as much, but still, Will Levis is playing in full Space Cadet mode right now. There's some good and there is some bad. So the Packers are a solid stream. I would take the Colts at home against a Bears offense that is really struggling. They gave up 7 sacks against Houston. The Colts don't have as good of a pass rush as Houston does, but playing at home, I would think they can get 3 of those guys, 3 or 4 sacks, with how the Bears offensive line is playing right now. Yeah, I would choose Indianapolis. I would choose Indianapolis if that's an option. You're good, Jake. Appreciate the clarity. I'm happy for your sake. You don't have 3 tight end ones in one league. That would be a headache to sort out. So, but you're all good. Okay, back to the top. Start DJ Moore or Ramondre Stevenson tonight. I don't even think I care what the scoring is. You play Ramondre Stevenson. If it's standard scoring, if it's half PPR, if it's full PPR, I think you just start Ramondre Stevenson. The usage is there. The routes run is there. Ramondre is running a ton he's only got 5 catches on the season, but he is running routes out of the backfield for the Patriots. That will course correct over the course of the season. And the Jets, the number 3, the Jets run defense stinks right now. They look terrible. I hate the short week. That's probably going to bog down this game a little bit. But the matchup is good. And the final thing here, this part pertains to DJ Moore. The Bears offense doesn't look good. The target share is there for DJ Moore, but that's it. The offensive line looks terrible for Chicago. Caleb Williams has gotten off to an incredibly slow start to his NFL career. Of course, things could turn around, but that offensive line is bad. Stevenson. I would go Stevenson tonight. And always, always, always put your Thursday Night Football players in one of their position spots. Do not leave your Thursday Night Football players in your flex. That is a way to potentially handicap yourself. Put your running backs on Thursday night in the running back spot. Put your wide receivers on Thursday night in a wide receiver spot. Leave that flex open for Sunday and Monday to maximize your flexibility. Pun intended. So fire up Ramondre Stevenson in one of those starting running back slots. Do not leave him in your flex if that is where you have him. But I'm going Ramondre Stevenson tonight over a lot of people. The usage, the routes run, the matchup, I think Ramondre's a must start tonight. Whereas DJ Moore is a guy that should be in your lineup, but if you have to choose between him and Ramondre, the answer is Ramondre. And I know Antonio Gibson had a nice game for the Patriots last week. That's fine. I'm going back to the well with Ramondre Stevenson. Let's see. I got to this strain of member questions. Thanks to my members. Thanks to everybody, but a special shout out to my members who help keep the lights on around here. If you are interested in being a member, if you want to find out more information, just to help to support the channel in general, you can find that information in the first link in the description of this live stream and the first link in the description of all of my streams and videos on the channel. One of the perks, of course, is priority access to questions and comments that you may have. Green Bay's not available. Crumply heads. You can stream the Colts if you can stream the Colts in both leagues, I'm fine with that. If they're not available in this other league, then I would pick up New Orleans. And I would probably play them at home. It's not the best matchup on paper. The Eagles do have a good offense, but without A.J. Brown on the road in a hostile environment like New Orleans, the Saints defense should be fine this week. The Saints defense should be just fine this week. If you're between all of these, if you're between all these defenses, I would say the Saints are a solid stream. Let's see, where are we at? We're flexing. So again, I see Braylon Allen in this question. I probably am not flexing Braylon Allen, but if you do choose to go Braylon Allen, put him in a running back spot, unless your other running backs are Breece and Ramondre. In which case, then I guess you have no choice. But if you do end up going with Braylon Allen, put him in a running back spot. Leave that flex open for anybody playing on Sunday or Monday night. But between Terry, Braylon Allen, Bucky Irving, Jalen Naylor, or Ezekiel Elliott, like Terry looks like the obvious call here, but he's done nothing to this point. I would start Terry over Braylon Allen. Allen looked great last week. He got 2 touchdowns, but he did it on only 9 touches. So if we're only expecting 9 or 10 opportunities from Braylon Allen per game, we can't expect 2 touchdowns to come along with it. That would just be insane efficiency. That is unsustainable for even the best players. Terry over Bucky Irving. Bucky looks good and looks possibly poised to get a much more expanded role as the season progresses in that backfield, but I don't think I can start him over Terry McLaurin just yet. Jalen Naylor, he's going to have an expanded opportunity with Jordan Addison continuing to be out. I think I need to go back to the well with Terry McLaurin for one more week over him. And then Zeke, the Cowboys running backs do not look good right now. I would not play Braylon Allen here. I think I would stick with Terry McLaurin for one more week. They are playing the Cincinnati Bengals, so you would think they have to throw the ball. Washington's going to have to throw the ball, and they had to throw the ball week 1 against Tampa, and that didn't necessarily translate for Terry McLaurin, but it was also Jaden Daniels' first career game. Maybe not a huge difference between your first career game and your third career game, but at least he's got 2 games under his belt. Like, maybe that'll help. Maybe that'll help with the connection and get him and Terry McLaurin on track. I think you have to go back to the well with Terry McLaurin for one more week, and these other 4 guys remain stashes. I would go with Terry for one more week. Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith. You can't play if you can't play both. I understand not trusting Jamar Chase right now, and the Eagles will be without AJ Brown, so that makes Devontae Smith even more enticing. I don't think you can pivot off of Jamar Chase. This matchup is excellent. The Washington Commanders are a team where you are going to be starting your wide receivers against them all season long. I like Devontae Smith quite a bit. You know, he should be excellent without AJ Brown. He should command a massive target share, but Jamar Chase is just the better player. You drafted him in the first round. You have to play him. You have to play Jamar Chase. I understand not trusting him right now, but this matchup is as good as you could ask for. They're at home. It's a get right game for Cincinnati. You have to play Jamar Chase. I'd be curious to know who else is in your lineup that is starting over Devontae Smith. That would be my question. But I'm not pulling the plug on Jamar Chase yet. Not the guy that you drafted in the first round. You have to play him. In this matchup against Washington, in every matchup, let's be real, but in this matchup against Washington, you have to play Jamar Chase. You just have to. And Nemo, you have Terry and Brandon Cooks. And sorry about I had Puka. Who else did I have? I have a league where I have Puka, I have Debo, I have Evan Ingram. I drafted Jonathan Brooks, so that was on me from the jump, like as a stash and hope. I got CD, who should be fine, but is now on the injury report with an ankle injury. I got Rachaad White, who's on the injury report, who's apparently fine, but still on the injury report, and he's looked bad. That team is a mess right now. I am not. The prospects are not strong. So I feel your pain if you have a Rams wide receiver. As far as Terry versus Cooks is in a good spot at home. But I would go back to the well with Terry McLaurin for one more week. The target share is there. Again, it hasn't translated yet, but this is a matchup where the Washington's probably going to have to throw against the Bengals. Their offense looked better last week against Kansas City. Joe Burrow looked better than he did week one. That just seems to be the thing with Joe Burrow and the Bengals now. Even though he came into this season presumably healthy, obviously there were questions about his wrist after week one, but he had a normal offseason from the perspective of he wasn't really rehabbing from anything. He suffered an injury in training camp last year. I think he suffered one in training camp the year before as well. He didn't suffer anything new in training camp this year. And even still, they got off to a slow start. They looked like garbage week one against New England. They looked better last week against Kansas City. T. Higgins is reportedly potentially coming back. He returned to practice today. So this Bengals offense is looking whole. They look like they're almost back to full strength. That would lead me to believe that I want to chase Terry McLaurin on the other side because Washington's going to have to keep pace through the air. They're probably not going to be able to do it on the ground. I would say Terry, Nima. I know the results haven't been there. Cooks had a nice day week one. He didn't really do anything last week, but he could get back on track in another home game against Baltimore. I would say Terry as the wide receiver one for his team. He's commanding the big target share. You just got to hope that at some point a couple of those throws click. They hit. They've been missing the past couple of weeks. Let's see if they can hit this week in a matchup where they are for sure Washington is going to have to throw the ball in a matchup against Cincinnati, whose offense looked better last week. Washington's defense stinks. Like, they're going to have to throw the ball. To me, that makes Zach Ertz like a sneaky tight end stream if you're hurting at tight end. Crumbly Heads, Ford or Ridley in standard scoring. I advised against Calvin Ridley last week, and that was wrong. So sorry about that. because he had a really good game. They are home against the Packers, which means he will see Jair Alexander. I also was concerned that he was going to see Sauce Gardner last week, and that didn't stop him. He had 4 catches, 75 yards, a touchdown, and I think he had a rushing score as well, because of course. Whereas Jerome Ford, his usage is now officially kind of in question after Donta Foreman saw so much work. Ford is at home against the Giants. Spectacular matchup. Ridley is at home against the Packers. Not a great matchup if he's going to have to see Jair. Fuck. Well, I'm sorry, Crumply Heads. I'll take responsibility for that one. I apologize. I think I lean Jerome Ford against the Giants. This might bite me in the ass again going against Calvin Ridley. But Ford is playing the Giants. Spectacular matchup at home. You know, is it possible that Donta Foreman gets more work than we would like to see? Yeah, it's possible. But I think Ford is still the better player than Donta Foreman. I think Donta had like, what do you have, like 14 for 42 last week or something like that. Ford only had 7 carries, but still turned it into 64 yards. I think a lot of that came on a big run, but it still happened. He still did it. I don't understand why Foreman would get more work than Ford when he's the less efficient player. I think I would go back to the well with Ford. If Ridley does well again this week against Jair Alexander, then he just stays in your lineup until further notice. But in standard scoring, I'm always going to be a little bit more inclined to take the running back over the wide receiver, unless it's like, you know, there's a big gap in talent. And Ridley is a talented player. He's really good. It's just that offense, the Titans' offense might be a little up and down this year with Will Levis doing his best Jameis Winston impression. And while I was concerned about the Sauce Gardner matchup for Ridley last week, it didn't matter. He's got another tough matchup this week against Jair Alexander. I slightly lean Ford. We can come back to that later this week if you want to. I don't know that my answer will change all that much. I'll say Ford. Okay, let's go back to Nemo. Zamir White, Jerome Ford, J.K. Dobbins, Zach Moss. So this is a start too. I will say Zamir White is incredibly enticing this week. This is a get right spot for him against the Carolina Panthers, who are getting killed every which way. Their defense stinks. Their offense stinks too. Carolina's offense stinks and their defense stinks. Other than that, they look good. This is a spot for Zamir White to bounce back. He's got, you know, the Raiders are, I think, 5-point favorites. That would indicate that game script is in Zamir White's favor. Of course, if it's full PPR, Nemo, then obviously White will lose work to Alexander Madison. That makes him a little less enticing. But again, I do think usage is on its way for Zamir White this week. Moss gets Washington at home. That's another great matchup. Ford, a little tougher to trust with Donta Foreman lurking, considering all of these options. And then the guy who probably looks the best of all of these dudes is J.K. Dobbins, who is not getting a ton of usage, but looks great. Of course, it's a tougher. This is a true test. He played against Carolina last week. Again, they're awful. and he went nuclear against Vegas week 1. This will be his first real test against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are good on defense. Dobbins has 130 yards in both games and a touchdown. He's been unbelievable to start the year. I'm tempted, Nemo, to go Zamir White and Zach Moss. It pains me a little bit to go against J.K. Dobbins, who has been spectacular through the first 2 weeks of the season, but the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road, that's a different animal than the Las Vegas Raiders and the Carolina Panthers. That is a real, litmus test for the Chargers offense, their run game and offense in general. Dobbins has been spectacular, and I feel bad not suggesting him. But Zamir White against the Carolina Panthers, he hasn't been great, but Carolina's been worse. Carolina's been worse. So I kind of like Zamir White, and I like Moss in a spot against Washington that is very favorable. He has been the dude. Like Zach Moss is dominating the snaps and touches right now. Chase Brown is not. And it's a great matchup. It's a great matchup for White, Ford, and Moss. It's a bad matchup for Dobbins, even though he's looked the best of all of these guys. I'll say White and Moss. I can't suggest Dobbins because it's a brutal matchup. And I can't suggest Ford among these options because is Donta Foreman taking 10 to 12 carries away from him. Alexander Mattison is taking pass catching opportunities away from Zamir White, but the Raiders are 5-point favorites at home. That could climb to 6. Even with Andy Dalton getting inserted as the starting quarterback, the Panthers are not good. So I'll say Zamir White and Zach Moss. I don't feel great about going against J.K. Dobbins, but the Pittsburgh Steelers will be the litmus test for Dobbins rest of season. If Dobbins does well against Pittsburgh, then he's probably gets to the point where he's in your starting lineup no matter what. But let's see how things shake out first this weekend. Pick 3, Jordan Mason, Breece Hall, Devon H. You have to, Jesus, how'd you end up with all these guys? Well, you have to play Breece. You have to play Achane, I would say. You have to play Breece. You have to play Achane. I mean, well, let's call a spade a spade. You have to play all of these dudes, but I think you have to play. I can't believe I'm saying this. I think you sit Saquon. Breece Hall is in your lineup tonight. I think he leads all running backs, or he's top 2 or 3 in running backs in routes run, even with Braylon Allen doing his thing last week. Breece is still a dynamic, electric player. You have to play Breece. You have to play Achane. I don't care. I don't care if Raheem Mostert plays. I don't care if Jalen Wright is active. I don't care if Jeff Wilson is active. Devon Achane has week winning upside every single week. You have to play Breece. You have to play Achane. And I think Jordan Mason in a matchup against the Rams are getting killed. They're getting killed in a lot of different ways. They're getting killed by injuries. They're getting killed by opposing offenses. Their defense is not good without Aaron Donald, specifically their line. The run defense has not been good. The 49ers are down to pretty much Mason and Brandon Ayuk at this point if George Kittle is not able to go after popping up on the injury report today. I can't believe these are your running backs. I think you sit Saquon on the road against New Orleans. I think you sit Saquon. You have to play Breece. You have to play Achane, and I'll say you have to play Jordan Mason. Those are probably like 4 of the top 5 running back plays this week. Let's see. Garrett Wilson tonight. Drake London, Amari Cooper, Demarcus Robinson. We're picking 2. Wilson has to be in tonight. You're playing. He's gonna see. He's gonna see Christian Gonzalez tonight, and that sucks. But you have to play him. You have to play him. You have to play Garrett Wilson. And then Amari Cooper has a really good matchup, but he hasn't been great. Drake London has not as good of a matchup, but he came through last week. So those are the toss-ups. Play Wilson tonight. I would encourage, if you can, to come back for the weekend streams. Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern, Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern. If you can make one of those two and we can make a final call, Cooper's in a good spot to bounce back against the Giants. London is in a tougher spot against Kansas City, but it could be a shootout, and at home they'll throw. I guess I'm inclined to say London, but we might want to see, on top of Friday practice reports, gonna have to think on that one. I think I slightly lean London. I would encourage coming back for the Saturday, one of the weekend start-sit streams, so we can make a definitive final call on London versus Cooper. I guess I would say London, just based on the fact that he delivered last week and Cooper has been slow out of the gate, even though this is a good matchup for him tonight, or this Sunday, excuse me. I'm gonna have to sleep on that one. Tentatively London, and then Wilson has to be in your lineup tonight. Garrett Wilson has to be in your lineup tonight. To that point, how do I feel about him tonight against Christian Gonzalez? Less good than you normally would. Christian Gonzalez is an emerging shutdown corner, but they're at home, and you drafted Garrett Wilson probably in the second round this year. It's possible in full PPR leagues he was a first-round pick in your redraft league. You have to play him. You have to play him. The ceiling is lower, but it's Garrett Wilson. You have to play him. Just hope for 12 targets and that he can come through in some way, shape, or form with that workload. So, how do I feel about him? Less good than usual, but you're not taking him out of your lineup. He's a stud, and you start your studs. Kirk Cousins versus Jared Goff. I would play Cousins. He's at home, playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. They are going to have to throw to keep pace. Jared Goff, just generally speaking, does worse on the road. He's a much better player at home. Since he joined the Detroit Lions, he's a much better player at home than he is on the road. Now, he laid an egg last week. He did terribly against Tampa at home. And in theory, this is, a bounce back spot for him against Arizona, who doesn't have a great defense, but they do have a great offense, which means the Lions are probably going to have to keep pace. I would slightly lean Kirk Cousins for the simple fact that he's at home. It's a tougher matchup. Kansas City's got a good defense, but he is at home. He's got Bijan. He's got Drake London. Darnell Mooney showed signs of life last week. I don't know what the hell we can expect from Kyle Pitts at this point, but at least I guess he can catch the ball. I don't know. Can he get open? Can he do anything more than get 3 catches for 20 yards? We'll see. I would slightly take Kirk over Goff for the simple fact that Goff is on the road this week. If the roles were reversed, if Goff was at home, I would take Goff, but because Goff is on the road, I'll take Cousins. Smith and Jigba, Brian Thomas, Dalton Kincaid, Michael Pittman, J.K. Dobbins were picking 3. So I can give my thoughts here. I do encourage folks to come back for the Saturday or Sunday start sit streams. when we are through Friday practice reports and we have all the information we could possibly have going into the week. We just don't have all that information yet. Like for JSN, for example, Tyler Lockett was on the injury report last week or yesterday. He was limited. So like, is Tyler Lockett limited again today? Like how is he tracking for this game? That affects JSN. Josh Downs returned to practice for the Colts. That affects Michael Pittman. He's looking like he's going to return. It's not definitive yet, but it's looking like he's going to return. Tentatively from this group, if you don't have to start Kincaid, if you have another tight end in your tight end spot, then maybe let him sit on the bench for a week and see how things shake out, even though it's not a bad matchup against Jacksonville. I don't think I'm playing Brian Thomas against Buffalo. It's a tough matchup, even though I like him quite a bit. I like Brian Thomas, but it's a bad matchup. It's not a good matchup. Between these options, I would probably say Pittman, Dobbins, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. But depending on who your starting tight end is, we could go back to the well with Kincaid and what could be a get-right spot, a get-right matchup. But obviously, it's fair to not have a ton of confidence in him. He hasn't done much of anything thus far. Geno or Sam Darnold? Geno, hands down. Oh, you have Bowers. Okay. You could. I'm not saying automatically do this. You could sell high on Bowers, get like a really, really good, because you can ask for a really, really good wide receiver or running back right now. And hope that Kincaid bounces back. I'm not totally giving up on Dalton Kincaid for the season yet. It's only been 2 games. And Josh Allen is playing incredibly well right now. So you would figure that their connection course corrects a little bit rest of season. You could. I'm sure you maybe don't want to do this right now because of how well Bowers is playing and how poorly Kincaid has done. You could sell high on Bowers, get a stud option at either running back or wide receiver, whatever you could conceivably use more. Like what is a more desperate situation between those two. And then go back to Kincaid rest of season and hope that he turns it around. If you could use receiver or running back help in one way or another, you could do that. Just throwing it out there. But Bowers does look good, so I understand if you don't want to pivot off of him. I'm going Geno over Darnold, and it's not close. Geno is playing great, and he's at home against a Miami offense that is without Tua, but they still have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Devon Achane. So Seattle's not going to be shy about trying to score points at home to put them away. Because you figure Seattle, without Tua, Miami's going to be an underdog in probably every game they play, unless they get Carolina at some point. Geno, and it's not close. He's playing really well right now. Darnold looked good last week. Are they on the road against Houston? That's not a great spot. It's not a great spot. No, they're at home. Still, Houston's defensive line is really good. Geno's playing maybe some of the best ball of his career. I would go Geno, and I have them. There's a gap in the rankings between the two in Geno's favor. And you have Josh Allen. So you have a vested interest in keeping that stack together. Depending on if you are weaker at running back or weaker at wide receiver, I would kick the tires on selling high on Bowers to a team in your league that is tight end needy. That could also help you fill a spot as far as, a beef up at running back or wide receiver, whatever you could use, more of. We are at the bottom of the chat. I can take a few more questions here, if any more cycle in. But if not, appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out tonight. I only ask that if you could, if you haven't already, if you just like the stream, that helps for algorithm purposes. I will be back Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern, Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, to go over any start-sit questions ahead of the Sunday slate and the Monday night doubleheader. So if you have questions that are still in the balance as far as what to do with your starting lineup for any Sunday or Monday players, come on back for the weekend streams, and I can help out then. We'll make some definitive calls, and especially so when we have Friday practice reports, we will have all of the information available to us that we need to make some final definitive calls. Once we know who's in, who's out, or who's looking likely to be in, and who's looking likely to sit week 3. But I think that will do it for tonight. Appreciate everybody coming in. Special shout out to my members, Greg, Jake, Crumply Heads, E111. Did I miss anybody else? I think those are the members that joined tonight. Appreciate you all. You guys are the ones who help keep the lights on around here. So thank you. And of course, thank you to everybody else for coming in, thinking enough to take the time to come hang out. Hopefully it was helpful. Again, come on back for the weekend start-sit streams, and we will sort out the rest of your lineups before the start of the week 3 slate. But I think that'll do it for me tonight. Any last-minute questions or comments can be left on this stream as a comment after the fact, and I will get to it when I can, if in the event you're not able to join one of the weekend streams. But that'll do it for me tonight. Enjoy the game. Hopefully things go your way, whatever the situation is. And I will see you guys this weekend. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.